In this video, we'll take a look at how to use a Typst template locally. There are plenty of Typst templates available on the Typst Universe. You can find the Typst Universe at typst.app/universe. Let's take a look. So when you go to the Typst Universe, you'll see this start page. In our case, we'll take a look at some of the templates. So on the left column here, you can click Templates, and you'll be presented with hundreds of templates. So these are templates you can use in your projects. You can even click the More Categories button on the left here to view the various categories these templates are usually for. Feel free to take a look at whichever template you like. In my case, I'm going to use a template I've used before. I'm going to search for APA, and there are plenty of APA-like templates. In this case, I'm going to use Versatile APA. So I'll click on this, and then you'll get some information about the template. You can even click this preview image to see what the first page might look like. So if you're using Typst on the web, you can click Create Project in App. If you're using Typst locally, you can also choose to use the Typst CLI to set up the project locally. And if you want to download from source directly, you can click the GitHub button here, or this download button here, and then try to extract it. If you don't have the Typst command line tool installed, you want to do so at typst.app/open-source. When you go to this web page, you'll see this Go to Downloads button you can click, or you can scroll through the page until you find the download section. So here I've clicked the button, and we can see there's the Install the Compiler section. First, we want to select the operating system you have. For example, you may be running Windows. Click on Windows, and then you'll see this giant blue download button you'll want to click. And then you'll also want to click this Add that directory to your path environment variable link. This way you can use Typst anywhere you want once you follow those directions. You'll also want to select the proper CPU architecture you have. Commonly, people have x86-64 here, but you may also have ARM instead. So make sure you choose the right one. And then you want to also choose macOS if you're using macOS, and choose the proper CPU architecture, and then click the giant blue download button, followed by just choosing Linux if you're using Linux, and following the same method. So let's copy this to clipboard. Here I'm on VS Codium. So we're going to need to open a terminal. So you can click the terminal button here and click New Terminal, or use the hotkey shown here. So in this terminal, we'll want to paste the command we have, and then press enter. And now a new folder should appear on the left column here, called versatile-apa. So we can run the commands that are shown here. We don't need to do that right now, actually. So we'll skip this and close the terminal. Here we'll click on main.typ within the versatile apa folder, and you'll see a default file. We'll also want to click this Typst preview button again, so we can see the preview on the right hand panel. And so now any changes we make in our source code should show up in the preview. We can verify this by, let's say, editing the title. I'll just put some random gibberish, and you can see the title on the right has also changed. Let me undo that. Now we have this template with various folders and the main file that we can use and customize it to our liking. For example, let's say I'm going to write a paper. I might change the title to the task name. So in this case, writing task 1 or something of the sort. There are plenty of parts to this template, so I'm just going to skim through. And each template might look different, so you'll want to take a look at how each of them are formatted and then customize it to your liking. So for example, there are keywords here, and if we scroll down a bit on our preview, we'll see keywords show up over here. So for example, I might change a keyword from APA to example, and you'll see the keyword modified here. If I scroll up a bit, we see this running head is the header that shows up here. So I'm going to put example at the end here, and you can see the example shows up there too. You can modify an author name. So for example, I could write my name. You can add affiliations if you'd like. So for example, I might put learn.moiskhan.com, and I might remove the other affiliation along with all the other authors since I don't need them. And you can see the preview only shows me as the author and my affiliation right below it. And there are some other details. Let's say the course code is A111. The instructor name might be some instructor. Since we're in code mode, as you can see with the hash symbol starting the title page code block, you'll notice that we can also use some code without a hash symbol within it, such as the due date value being a date time as for today's date, and Typst automatically uses the today's date. And there's some more details such as the author note. Sometimes you can also just comment some of these sections out if you don't want them, or even delete them entirely. So this could be a decent first page. perhaps it might modify the running head. However, you want to look at the APA guidelines as to how to actually format this properly for an actual writing assignment, or whatever your educational institution requires. You'll notice that the typed file is relatively sequential. So after the initial metadata for the title page, we have the abstract page. So we can modify the lorem into something else. So this is my abstract. And we'll need to make sure this is in square brackets, as this is content within a code block. And now we have this is my abstract appear as intended. And it seems like there are keywords that were from the top here that are showing up there. So I might just put types as one of the keywords and example as another. So that was the abstract page. Then you have the outline here, which appears as contents. If we scroll down further, you'll have the next section after a page break, which is the tables section. Notice how the title says tables, and we can modify it to something else if we needed to. You can hover over some of the arguments in this outline code block to try to understand what's going on better. So for example, the target argument is being used, and I want to scroll down to figure out how it works. So for example, you may list figures containing image by saying target to a specific kind of figure. So that means that anywhere in the document that we have where there is a table figure, then that will be listed in this outline right here where it's labeled tables. Notice how if we scroll up a bit, the original outline, the default one, does not limit or filter just tables. Rather, it represents the sections within the paper. Also, you'll notice the outline code block. When you click on one of these sections, you can jump to it. So if I click section here, it'll jump to that section. And there are other outlines shown here. So there are tables, as we've seen. We have figures, where these figures include images. Then we have equations for math equations. And then we have a raw listing, so it seems like this is a code block, for example. Following that, we have the appendices section for the appendix, which is usually at the end of a paper. And then you'll notice there are some include statements. And what include does is allow you to include another type file's contents in this location. So right after the appendices section, we'll grab the introduction.type file from the sections folder. If we open up the Explorer here and expand the sections folder, you'll notice the template consolidate each of these as a specific section, so you can easily move around the sections if you want in this main file. And finally, after each of these sections, we have the bibliography using the bibliography code block, and this is generated from a YAML file, which is over here in the bibliography folder. And you can also use a .bib file instead if you'd like. And then there are some arguments, and you can take a look as to what they represent in the docs or when you hover over the code block. After that would be the appendix file. There's also the assets folder we haven't looked at, where we store our images and perhaps even code if we want to refer to it within the content. And that's a general exploration of the versatile APA template. There's plenty more to take a look at, and you can probably check the documentation for this template from the Typst Universe for more details. However, this is just one way to get going using an existing Typst template that might be helpful if you need to use a certain format for your papers or other categories of Typst usage.